What's going on, everyone? Thrift Barringer here, live in another edition of Beyond the Sidelines with Houston Clinic, and I am with another one of their fabulous doctors, Dr. Matthew Stewart. Dr. Stewart, thank you so much for joining us here.
Oh, thank you for the introduction. Thanks for having me. I love orthopedics. I love sports, so it's a pleasure to sit down and talk to you about both.
Yeah, man, and also he is an Auburn graduate, so War Eagle, so now he's doubly my favorite, man. All right, let's go ahead and get into it, man. Like we always do when we start these, is we want you to kind of give your background. This is your introduction to the community so they know what you do here at Houston Clinic. So tell them where you're from, where'd you go to college, and then ultimately what led you here to Houston Clinic. So floor is yours. Give us your background, man.
All right, well, thank you. So I'm homegrown. I'm from Columbus, Georgia, born and raised. I grew up playing sports here locally. I mean, just a skip away over there in Pioneer Little League is where I played B-ball and A-ball.
Yep.
Grew up playing soccer. Back in the old days when I started, we were playing in Bibb City. And we jumped over to the Woodruff Farm complex when I got older, but played primarily baseball and soccer as a youth. And then went to Columbus High, go Blue Devils. Played football for them at the linebacker position, primarily defense. And then my father actually worked for Auburn University.
Oh, wow.
He commuted from Columbus to Auburn every day, and so grew up a huge fan. We went to all the home games. It's kind of in my blood. And so after high school graduation, went right down the road and went to Auburn University. And so you had to pick a major day one. And I had a grandfather who was a big influence. He was an orthopedic surgeon out in Texas, my mom's father. And I can still remember fourth grade, I had an assignment. You had to write a biography about one of your family members. He was a real interesting guy. He was not only a doctor or a surgeon, he was a cattle rancher and that greatest generation. He lived through the Great Depression, was an Army doctor during World War II, and so I couldn't think of a better person to write a paper about. And so sat down with him over Christmas break and had all my questions out, and he had all these interesting things that he wanted to talk about, but he primarily told me about his orthopedic career. And so I was hooked from then on.
Nice.
He liked kind of a special breed of orthopedic surgeon. He liked doing back surgery and treating kids with club feet. And that's like two very opposite ends of the
Right.
orthopedic world that usually don't touch at all. But that was his thing. And so when I had to go to Auburn, choose a major, I chose biomedical science, which was kind of like your pathway into pre-med. And they had a great pre-med program. They had electives that you could kind of take, and one of them was where you actually got into the operating room with an orthopedic surgeon if that was your interest. And so I got to go to East Alabama Medical Center and see orthopedic surgery when I was in college, and it just reaffirmed that's what I wanted to do. I think my first surgery was probably like a knee replacement, and it's nothing but glorified carpentry is what we say. I mean, you're using tools and you're piecing things back together that are broken or disabled, and then when they're healed at the end product, you're seeing somebody getting back to their normal activities, returning back to the field in the case of the athletes. And so from Auburn, I got into med school, came back over to Georgia and went to the Medical College of Georgia in Augusta. And so that was the 4 years of medical school, and then you apply for residency. And I was fortunate to get into a great orthopedic residency in Memphis, Tennessee, called the Campbell Clinic. It's one of the oldest orthopedic residencies in the country. They famously say they wrote the book on orthopedics.
Yeah.
I think we somewhere in this library have their volumes of orthopedics. It's called the Campbell Clinic Operative Orthopedics Set. And so I spent 5 years there doing all aspects of orthopedic training. And then when you get done with your 5 years, you got a decision to make. Do you want to go out and kind of do general orthopedics, or do you want to subspecialize within orthopedics? And I like the thought of doing general orthopedics, but I wanted to have something to fall back on. And so I decided to go spend a year at Duke University and specialize in foot and ankle surgery. got a lot of great exposure there that year. You know, you're going to some of the games, you're seeing some of the athletes.
That's awesome.
And so spent a year at Duke doing the foot and ankle fellowship, but I always knew I wanted to get back home. Houston Clinic, it's a huge name within orthopedics, and it's right there in my backyard where I grew up. And so got my family here, and so came back in 2017 and established my practice. So been here for the last 9 years. And your practice is, you kind of make it what you want it. And I still had that part of me that wanted to do some general orthopedics,
Right.
but had the part of me that wanted to do foot and ankle surgery. So I've been able to do that. And so I see a wide range of patients, different populations. You'll see little kids, you'll see older individuals with hip and knee arthritis that need their hip and knee replaced.
Right.
And so a large segment of the actual athletes I'm seeing are the ones with the foot and ankle injuries. So been here 9 years going, and it's been a blessing.
Right.
A good ride.
I for one, something that kind of resonated with me, man, is talking about your granddad being your mentor and someone that meant a lot to you. My granddad coached for 30 years. My love for sports and getting into this field came from being around him. Talk about that influence, talking about growing up in a doctor family. Was there pressure on you? Do you felt like your family kind of said, hey, Matt, listen, you better be a doctor. That's what we do here. Or is it more like it was natural? You knew this is what you want to do, and because of how much you love your granddad and his mentorship towards you?
Yeah, no, I never felt a pressure. So my grandfather lived in Texas, so we saw him every summer, a couple weeks. We saw him on the holidays, going Thanksgiving, Christmas. So it wasn't a presence over me 24/7. Neither my parents here are physicians, but he was certainly a big influence in both why I went into medicine and partially why I love sports. He was from Montgomery, Alabama, so he grew up in the South before he went to Texas. He was a big football fan. He actually played college football at Johns Hopkins University way back in the 1930s. So we're talking leather helmets, you know, the Red Grange days. But so he had that presence. He loved watching football. And so I got some of the love for sport from him, as well as the love for orthopedics. Another core memory is when my little brother, who's 4 years below me, was born. He kind of had the pigeon-toed things. I told you he liked the club feet, and so I can still remember going out there Christmas break and my grandfather putting my little brother in cast. Yeah, so he was great. There was never any pressure. I think it's kind of just happened naturally with you know, seeing his passion for it, listening to him talk about it, and then on the other end, I was fortunate enough on my dad's side of the family. He had a sister that was married to an orthopedic surgeon, so my uncle. And he was at the Campbell Clinic where I ended up going.
Oh, wow.
And so when I got there, I had another huge influence, someone who, you know, was there as a mentor to help guide me. Questions, you could always run off of them. So Dr. Beatty, my uncle, was a great influence on the other side of the family. So we do have a family tradition of doctors, but they were never 24/7 on top of me since they lived afar.
Right. Well, I want to talk about residency because that's something that every doctor I've sat with here and had to go through. Obviously, it's a requirement.
Yeah.
But how important is it to find a place that you are happy to be at? Because I feel like those 5 years, if you're unhappy, it can take a toll on you. It could really deter you from your ultimate goal of being a doctor. So basically, what's your advice for young and upcoming people that gone through school when they have to pick a residency place, that they actually pick somewhere that it, you know, works for them? Or is it more that you don't get to choose? Is whoever really picks you?
It's a little bit of both. It's a complex kind of matching system that determines where you do your residency. But it's very important to find, if you're lucky enough, the place that you mesh with, you gel with, because I mean that's, in our case, 5 years of your life.
Right. That's what I was listening to.
That's going to be the people you're spending, you know, 80 to 100 hours a week with, and so there are some tools that you can use. And as a fourth-year medical student, they give you ample time to kind of audition, which is where you may go spend 3 or 4 weeks at a certain site that has a residency that you may be interested in. So you get to be there as a med student. You're working with them. And so my 4th year, I had a chance to go spend 4 weeks at Emory University in Atlanta with their orthopedic program. And I had a chance to go for 4 weeks to Memphis, where I ultimately ended up. And so that's going to give you the best hands-on experience. I mean,
Nice.
You know where the buildings are, you know who the people you work with,
Right.
you know the environment, you know, is it nurturing, is it toxic, is it a combination of both, are they pushing you, do they have opportunities to do research if that's something you're interested in, do they have exposure to big sports if that's something you're interested in. You know, as an audition student, I got to go with the senior sports doctor for the Campbell Clinic and go to the locker room for an NBA game with the Memphis Grizzlies.
Awesome.
Go in there and see, you know, Mark Gasol and Mike Conley walking around and see how he interacted, and then sit there and have dinner with some of the players after the game, and be right there behind the locker, or behind the bench during the game.
That's awesome,
and
man.
we also covered a AAA, the Memphis Redbirds, the minor league baseball team. So, you know, other programs I didn't go and audition at, I may not know that, you know, all the ins and outs of the program. But then after you do your audition, you still have to interview at other places, because it's a pretty competitive field, orthopedics. And so, you know, in my day, this was 2010, 2011, I think I applied to 15 or 20 programs, and then probably interviewed somewhere between 10 or 15 programs, and they were all on site. And so you're traveling to places, and in the places where you didn't audition, you're getting a 24, 36-hour window into the program. They're trying to put on their best face, and you're meeting some of the residents who you'll be spending time with, and some of the attending doctors who are going to train you, but you may not get that full window. So you do all your interviews. I think in my case, like I said, I did somewhere between 10 or 15, and then you have to go in, you have to rank 1 through however many interviews you did. And then it goes into some computer, and the schools have done, or the programs have done the same thing with all the people that come through. They've ranked every single individual that interviewed there. And then you have something called match day, and it, I think, occurs in late March, and it's every day. I mean, it's the biggest day for the 4th-year med students who are about to graduate.
It's like draft day, right?
Yeah, it's your draft
for
day.
NFL draft. This is awesome information, man.
You know, you're in a big auditorium, and there's usually a theme. People are dressed up. They've had
Awesome,
fun.
man.
And they call your name up on the stage, and you go get a letter, and you open this letter, and it shows you where you're going to spend, in my case, the next 5 years of my life. And fortunately for me, I got to go to the place I wanted to go.
Right.
But there's people crying, there's people jumping up and down. So, I mean, you may end up in the part of the country that you ranked last, or the program you ranked last, and certainly that's disappointing for some people. But in my case, it worked out well, and you know, I couldn't have asked for a better place to train. It was kind of the right size program. It was large. There was a total of 8 residents in my class. So over 5 years, that's 40 residents that you're interacting with. We had a great group of you know, guys and girls, great spouses. So there was always something to do when you had that rare time when you were off, that you had plenty of people that you become friends with who are still my close friends now, and had a great group of attendings. I mean, got a very wide variety of training. We had a major level 1 trauma center, which was the Elvis Presley Trauma Center. And Memphis is unfortunately known for its trauma, but as an orthopedic surgeon, it provided me a lot of opportunity to operate early and often. So we were always busy at the Elvis Presley Trauma Center. And I spent, I don't know, probably 2 years there over the course of 5 years. But then you got that subspecialty training. You did, you know, 6 weeks, 3 months at total joint replacements, 3 months spine surgery, 3 months hand surgery. And every good program should offer you, you know, all the subspecialties, but the trauma surgery was kind of the core of our program, where you actually learn to operate by yourself or with an upper level resident. That's kind of forms the core of orthopedics in a lot of regards with your early training, is getting comfortable operating when you're uncomfortable. So getting comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah, well.
So it was a great experience for me.
And dude, for one, it's awesome, Dr. Stewart, that you just let us know that y'all have a draft day when it comes to
Yes.
residency, and y'all get to
Yeah.
walk up on the stage. So there's information you probably didn't even know you were
Yeah.
going to learn about here on Beyond the Sidelines with Houston Clinic. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back from break, we're going to talk about why Dr. Stewart ultimately chose to come back home here to Houston Clinic, and then talk about some of his specialties as a doctor. It's Beyond the Sidelines with Houston Clinic here on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. I'll be right back after this.
At Jack Houston Memorial Hospital, our focus is you. Even though we performed more than 1,300 joint replacements last year, we treat you like you are our only patient. Your surgeon explains your joint replacement, so nothing is a surprise. Our team knows your treatment plan, and we work together to get you back on your feet again. That's why our hospital is recognized year after year as a leader in patient satisfaction and quality of care. Jack Houston Memorial Hospital. Excellence, always.
Welcome back to Beyond the Sidelines. I am with Dr. Matt Stewart here with Houston Clinic on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. All right, Dr. Stewart, as I may mention, let's talk about Houston Clinic. When you decided to come back home, what drew you to come to work at this prestigious organization and be a doctor here at Houston Clinic?
Yeah, I think just growing up, right around the corner, you've always heard about Houston Clinic. The residency I did in Memphis. You tell them you're from Columbus, Georgia, and first thing one of the doctors said, "Oh, where the Houston Clinic's at." And so, and that makes you feel good inside, knowing that's in your backyard.
Right.
But I mean, Jack Houston was what we consider the father of orthopedic surgery. This clinic's been here for 75 years. It's been training sports medicine orthopedic surgeons for 50 years, and it just has a legacy of providing excellent care, and it's the community I grew up in, so have the opportunity to go to such a prestigious clinic in my backyard to help my community, to carry forth that legacy, to be a part of that legacy, and to add value to that legacy, hopefully, was something I couldn't pass up.
All right, foot and ankle, that's one of your specialties.
Yeah.
Okay, and sports related, kind of stick on theme. Obviously, Georgia Alabama Sports Live. We want to talk about sports related injuries, even though you deal with a plethora of stuff. We were talking about that off air. When talking about a patient coming into your office, right, and let's start with high school, a kid.
Sure.
All right, what's the first thing that you're doing when they come into your office? Are you telling them they need to get an x-ray? Do they already have an x-ray before they come in? Kind of walk through kind of the procedures on when a high school student comes in, they injure their foot, you don't know if it's a break or sprain yet. What are the steps moving forward, and then how do you go about that process of finally getting them back to healthy once you know what the injury is?
Sure. It can happen in several different ways. Some patients are being referred to your clinic,
Right.
so they may have gone to an urgent care and had an x-ray already. They may have kind of a working diagnosis that a nurse practitioner or a PA may have had. And some patients are calling, making an appointment, and they're right off the street. They've never been seen. But you get them back in the room. You go in there, you talk with them. Why are you here? Have a little form they fill out. Tell me what happened. Where's it hurt? How
Right.
bad does it hurt? How long ago did it happen? What things have you tried? What things have you not tried? And so for an example, somebody comes in with an ankle sprain. They heard it 3 days ago. It's swollen. We're almost always going to evaluate somebody who's coming in with a musculoskeletal complaint with an x-ray. So if they've already had an x-ray, we can use that. If they haven't, we're going to get a new x-ray.
Right.
And then we're laying hands on the patient. So we're feeling that ankle. We're looking at the swelling. We're testing the stability of the ligaments. We're checking the tendons. The Achilles tendon is a big one in our high school athletes or any athlete. So it's a combination of talking to them, reviewing the x-rays with them, going over a physical exam, and then depending on what you find is how you advance, with a plan or a course of treatment. And so if you take that ankle sprain example, say they injured it 3 days ago, they've got moderate swelling, they can put weight on it, but it hurts.
Right.
They have an x-ray that's negative, then you can, work through that. They have a grade 2 ankle sprain. They've already started some of the early treatments. A lot of these people are in tune with the RICE protocol, which is rest, ice, compression, elevation.
Yep.
They've already gotten an anti-inflammatory like ibuprofen to decrease swelling, help with their pain. And where we're there is can we get you involved in physical therapy, or can we provide some exercise that are going to keep your range of motion, that's going to help with strengthening, make sure they're plugged in with the trainer, get them taped up or get them braced appropriately so they can return to play as fast as possible.
When you talk about after, obviously sprains are some of the worst to overcome, but let's actually go into the break part. What type of surgeries are you talking about? Or most of the time, are they having to go through surgery if they break their ankle? Or what type of injury is there that you're actually having to get them under a scalpel and actually having to do work on a athlete? What are some of those common injuries?
So the thing that I loved about foot and ankle was you get all types of variety of injuries, and many of them do need surgery.
Right.
And so I would say some of the most common ones that are going to need surgery, directly after the injury, ones where we're not going to really try conservative care, but we're saying, all right, you need surgery. An unstable fractured ankle. So you can fracture your ankle and the ligaments all be intact. It didn't really displace or shift, but when you get an x-ray and someone's fracture has shifted, you may put a little stress on that ankle and just see that the ligaments are torn. An unstable ankle fracture is going to get surgery every time. In our athletes, an Achilles tendon rupture, going to get surgery almost every time. Now, this doesn't apply to the entire population, but for the athletes who are trying to be proactive, return to play early. There's a famous fracture in the foot and ankle world for athletes called the Jones fracture. The Jones fracture is a fracture of their fifth metatarsal base, and that area has poor blood supply. And so we know that in some portion of the population, if you just put them in a cast, you may do everything right. Because of that poor blood supply, they're not going to heal. And so with surgery, you're able to go in there, compress the fracture with a screw across the fracture site, get a higher likelihood of healing, faster return to weight bearing, which means faster return to play. So those get surgery oftentimes. Patients with a fracture across the midfoot called the Liz Frank.
I've always heard that, and I always thought it was a cool name, a Liz Frank injury.
It's French, yeah. It does have an interesting history. The name comes from a physician in Napoleon's army.
Okay.
And so, I mean, we're talking 17th, 18th century here.
Right.
And he noticed that some of these soldiers were getting their foot stuck in the stirrup, and they'd get thrown from the horse, but the foot would stay in the stirrup, and it would fracture or dislocate or injure, mangle the middle of their foot. So that's where the name initially comes from. But we'll see it where you have a high force injury to the middle part of the foot, and it can cause a whole spectrum. It can be as simple as a ligament tear, or it can be fractured, dislocated. And so, and when it's serious with the fracture and the dislocation across that joint, that needs surgery. Turf toes, a severe turf toe would probably require early surgery. But those are some of the more common ones that, we see. We're trying to return them to play initially, so we're going to proceed with surgery in most of the cases.
Achilles injury. I see a lot of these in professional athletes more than ever, man. Especially in the NFL, NBA. I'm seeing a lot of the high-level guys going down for long periods of time because of those Achilles injuries. Are those common in high school, or is that something that it happens because you've been on your feet for so long, you've been an athlete for so long, or is that something that can happen when you're 15, 16, 17 years old as well?
It's more rare in the high school athlete. I would say the highest incidence that we'll see is probably in the late 20s,
Gotcha.
the 30s.
Yep.
It's funny you say that. Greg Kittle, the tight end for the 49ers, had one yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. You're seeing it's more and more common with older athletes. Is there any way to avoid these?
I think the Achilles, so stretching is the key. Your gastroc, which is your calf muscle, gets tight. It puts a lot of strain on your Achilles. I'm a big proponent of always stretching before any type of athletic event. I do think there are some times that it's just the right force, the way your foot was planted, the way the injury came, or the way the force came down on the back of your calf or the back of your Achilles while the foot was stationary on the ground. So some of it's bad luck, but we certainly can be proactive in the way we stretch. But yeah, in our case, fortunately, we're not seeing it a lot. It still can happen, but not a lot in our local high school athletes.
Yeah, and which is a scary thing. But I've asked this question with every one of the doctors. I'm interested in your perspective on it. When you're having to talk to a senior that is having that debilitating injury, that they're probably not going to come back and be able to play again their senior year. And it may be the last time they ever get to play that sport. How do you go about telling them, hey, this is what's going on? How do you go about, hey, listen, I know you want to play, but you can't rush this back. I'm telling you, if you want to be able to walk right for the rest of your life, this is what you got to do. How do you go about handling stuff like that when knowing that these kids, especially nowadays, put more pressure than ever about getting a scholarship, being able to get NIL money or whatever it may be? They have more pressure. So how do you talk them into like, hey, man, this injury, you can't avoid it?
Yeah, I think there are two different conversations you'll have with athletes in that scenario. There are some that you're injured, you're done. It's pretty black and white.
Right.
And they're going to be upset, and the parents are upset. But, you explain the injury.
Right.
You tell them the consequences of, you got a long life ahead of you. I know that, this season football or basketball is very important to you, but you want to be able to walk. You won't want to have the consequences of, walking on a fractured ankle that leads to it not healing properly, and you need, major reconstructive surgery.
Right.
Where, if you let it heal, you may not have any long-term consequences from it. And then the challenging situation are patients that may have an injury that needs surgery, but can you tape them? Can you brace them? Can you get them through the season? Because this is their last chance. This is their last game.
Right.
An example of that is someone who may have a history of ankle sprains that's led to some chronic instability. And so that instability, if it keep happening over many years, can wear the ankle out. And you want to correct that with surgery. You want to repair that ligament to provide stability to that ankle. But they have 3 games left. It's their senior season. Can we tape them? Can we brace them? Can we get them through those 3 games? And that's where, a lot of times you're making a judgment call like, yeah, I'm able to stabilize you. You're not having any pain when you're taped. We're maybe putting the tape on again at halftime to make sure. Or, no, man, I can tell that you're in pain. We've taped you up. You can't go. And so that becomes a difficult conversation and decision point to make in some of these that are kind of in that gray area.
Right. Preventative measures. We got a couple more questions. And talk about preventative measures. You talk about stretching. I remember doing a science fair project back when I was a sophomore, Dr. Stewart, and I actually won because I talked about the effects of stretching and how when I stretch, obviously my performance and how high I jumped, how fast I ran was significantly better than it was when I didn't stretch and go out there cold. So is that one of the biggest and probably the most important, or is also the drinking and the eating and the sleeping all just as important as the stretching is too?
Well, yeah, stretching is huge. I think you can look at it in different phases as in terms of preventative measures to prevent injuries. I mean, I think one phase is equipment, another phase is what you do on the field in terms of your performance and what you do off the field in terms of your preparation. So in terms of equipment, obviously concussions have been in the media, and publicity has been around that for the last 10 or 15 years, and we've seen the way that they've changed the rules to protect players.
Right.
You got better equipment in terms of helmets. In terms of a kind of a foot and ankle example, in the 1980s, we saw a much higher rate of turf toe injuries. And a turf toe is where a ligament on the bottom of the foot of the great toe tears off the proximal phalanx, which is one of the bones in the great toe. It can be a debilitating injury. It can be career-ending in some cases, and it was happening at a much higher rate. We saw that at that time they had kind of changed some of the shoe wear to much lighter weight, more flexible shoe wear.
Right.
So you weren't having as much protection on your foot at the same time that a lot of these college and professional stadiums had gone away from grass fields to turf. Artificial turf was kind of newer technology at that point. And the artificial turf of that era was much harder, much unforgiving. So you had a kind of a double-edged sword of a very flexible shoe on a very hard surface, and we saw much more injuries with turf toe. Now we know that you need support in that shoe, and so with changes in materials now, you can still have a lightweight shoe that's very supportive. So you want a sports-specific shoe and almost a position-specific shoe that offers support. So that's where equipment comes into play within the foot and ankle. Your off-the-field preparation, I mean, you kind of highlighted it. Nutrition, I think we're all aware as athletes and as a society that what you put in your body is important, and we're eating healthy food. That fuel that you put in there is essential. Sleep, people don't talk about that enough. Our high school athletes need to be getting sleep. But a lot of the points that they want to focus on is in the weight room and conditioning. That's their pregame preparation. And if you do have an off season and you return to the weight room or to a conditioning program, you've got to build up. Your duration, the intensity of the workouts cannot be the same as where you ended the season. You've got to get back. You don't want to have a stress fracture. We see it all the time in military recruits who are recruited off the street and they start running, they start pounding the pavement and they get stress fractures. Right. So you got to build up. You can't go full bore from day one. Build up the duration and the intensity. And then on the field preparation, I mean, you already highlighted your science experiment. I mean, stretching is key. Hamstrings, calf stretching, Achilles stretching, that's going to prevent that hamstring tear, that gastroc tear, that Achilles rupture. And then just proper technique. The coaches go over proper way of diving, proper way of pivoting, proper way of blocking, proper way of tackling, preventing cervical injuries with tackling the wrong way with your head down. I mean, so you got to execute proper technique. But all these are preventative measures. And so it's not one over the other. It's kind of a combination of everything.
Inform, educate, entertain, and that's what we just did. Dr. Stewart, thank you so much, man. I appreciate the time and look forward to talking to you real soon.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
It's Beyond the Sidelines, this time with Dr. Matt Stewart here, Houston Clinic on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Thank y'all so much for watching. We'll see you next time.